Hey, thought I'd do a quick overview for Blazing Chrome. I just got this from the developer a couple days ago. Now, I'm recording this in advance, so there is an embargo. I'm not exactly sure how much of the game I can show exactly at midnight, so I thought I'd just do a quick mechanics overview. Now, in terms of options, it's pretty standard stuff. It seems like you want to have the VSync on because it doesn't run higher than 60 FPS, so unlike a lot of other modern, 2D pixel indie games like this, you can't run it at an arbitrary frame rate. Everything else is pretty standard stuff. I was also given the Switch version as well. It doesn't seem like you could change the controls on the Switch version for some reason, but I'll have to look into that later. Overall, the controls are actually pretty friendly for an arcade stick. Unfortunately, one thing that kind of sucks about a lot of modern indie games is they play like, the old games that we grew up with, these people that were born in the 80s and 90s and things like that, but very few are actually friendly with an arcade stick. This game is only 5 buttons, and you really only be using 3 regularly, which is the jump, shoot, and the aim button. The rest are just for weapon switching, and you won't really be using those that often. Pretty much like the original Contra games, if you die and you have a power-up selected, then you'll lose it, so you definitely want to switch strategically and not kind of blow all your power-ups on just generic modes. So, let's get to the game. So there's 3 difficulties. On these first 2 difficulties you have unlimited continues, however, you cannot credit feed in the traditional sense. I mean, like, in terms of playing, like, Final Fight, like a beat 'em up or something, where you can continue and when you die on the spot, and then just get through the game that way. It won't work that way. You'll always go back to the respective checkpoint. There are maybe 3 to 4 checkpoints per level, so you will have not as much repetition as you think. However, there are numerous auto-scrollers in this game, and I actually talked to the developer and told them that it was really the only weak spot I found with this game is repeating the auto-scrollers can get really frustrating really quickly because, obviously you can't really speed them up, whereas when I died to the bosses and things like that, I could always get back pretty quickly, but when you die on an auto-scroller, it's at least maybe 2 to 3 minutes of just kind of going through the same thing. So the hardcore mode is the only one that limits your credits. And the easy mode actually doesn't seem that much easier than normal. It seems like they have enemies have like a little bit less health. However, HP sponging or sponge enemies is not really an issue in this game. I never really felt like very many of the enemies took more damage than they should have. So for the purpose of this video, let's go ahead and choose easy. As you progress through the game and beat it, you can actually unlock mirror mode as well, which I don't really understand the purpose of. So you basically have 2 characters, and then you have like an alternate skin. So these are the 2 that you start with, and then this is the ninja character and his alternative. So let's go with the main character first, and then I'll overview the ninja. Pretty standard stuff here. You'll be holding down the aim button quite a bit, so if you're playing on an arcade stick, you may want to have the jump, shoot, and aim button on the top row, and then maybe you can put the weapon switching on the bottom. That way you won't have to move your hand too far if you have an 8-button stick. I should mention the roll is not invincible. I think that's kind of something that feels a little weird. I know that the other Contra games are like that, but it would be cool if it had at least a little bit of iframes. The mechs, for what they're worth, are kind of awkward to control. They are powerful, but sometimes I felt like I couldn't really prevent damage in some cases, at least on normal mode. But they do give you achievements for getting them to the end of the boss and stuff, so I guess it's meant to be a challenge. But they're nowhere near as like instantly user-friendly as, like, say, a Metal Slug would be. Here's the basic controls here. If you played stuff like Shock Troopers, you'll probably be used to the lock feature. However, you cannot move during it. When you do the roll, you can actually jump cancel. So you can use that to get a little extra mobility. You also have a melee attack similar to Metal Slug, and it actually does pretty good damage. So one of the strategies I found when I was learning the game on my first playthrough is that even when I died, I would actually use some of the iframes to just keep doing the knife or sword attacks. and get some extra damage that way. So you have a bot option here. There's an attack bot and a defense bot and a speed bot. The defense bot gives you 3 hits before you go back to having a one-hit attack, one-hit kill kind of mechanic. The attack bot is basically just like an option in any shmup you can think of, and the speed bot is pretty self-explanatory. However, you cannot stack them, which definitely feels a little odd. If you get pretty good at the game and you can get to one bot while you still have the other one active, then you pretty much have to make the decision to switch them. The speed bot doesn't seem terribly useful. I imagine in the speedrun setting it's obviously something that you would want to take. But the defense bot seems like the most useful one, and then the attack bot would be second. I actually don't know how much damage it does. But one thing I would like is for them to have some kind of option where you could actually stack all the bots. So here's the power-up system. Now you can choose whichever letter you want, very much like a Metal Slug, and that tells you which one you'll get. So I'm going to choose the G, which is the grenade. Oh, never mind, I got that instead. Here's the laser. And like I mentioned earlier, if you die while you have a weapon selected, then you will lose it. So you generally don't want to play too recklessly if you have a weapon power-up active, because otherwise you run the risk of losing it. The game feels very responsive. It doesn't feel unresponsive like some indie games unfortunately feel. The character pretty much does what you tell it to do. If you're used to like modern action games and stuff, it definitely takes some getting used to in terms of the role like not actually being invincible, but that's something that just comes with time. So here's the attack bot. And here's kind of the issue I have with this game, is you can't like stack them all. I think that would be pretty fun. It would definitely add an interesting dynamic to actually being good enough at the game to keep all the power-ups at once, but unfortunately you can't do that. So pretty much every time there's a fade to black screen transition, that signifies a checkpoint. So if you're used to like other games where there's like an actual visual indication for a checkpoint, basically here it's just going to be whenever there's a screen transition. So for example, this is the boss checkpoint. So you have to go through this pretty much every time you manage to enter credit here. And pretty much every level boss is the same way. You'll always have to go through the last section. The only exception is the final boss. The final boss, for whatever reason, has like 2 auto-scrollers. So it gets pretty draining to have to repeatedly go through that if you die. I think it took me like 4 or 5 tries to take it down. But I did talk to the developer, and he said that he agreed with me. I also brought up some concerns in terms of that this is actually going to be on the new Exa Arcadia platform, which is basically kind of like modern-day Neo Geo. I think it's going to have, small arcade cabinets in more accessible areas instead of just, places like Ground Fun, which a lot of places still don't have access to. And I brought up the concern of if the auto-scrollers don't let you buy in credits, then you'll run into an issue where people will keep dying and having to reset on the auto-scroller and not potentially want to see the game begin. He said that he agreed with me, however he needed to talk it over with the other developers, so I don't know if that will be changed or not. As it stands, it was really the only issue I had with this game. I thought it was a very enjoyable playthrough. I'm not the best at Contra games, so I'm decent at them at best, but I've never really been able to once see any of them or anything. game does require a pretty significant amount of focus, so it is difficult to play while trying to commentate and explain everything. There we go. Like I said, easy mode does not really seem to reduce the enemy HP as much. I played through the whole game on normal on my first run, and it doesn't really feel like there's that much of a difference. So it's not the kind of easy mode that's completely devoid of challenge. I mean, you still die one hit and everything, so... It's not like some other games where easy mode is basically just walk to the end. So I'm gonna go back to the menu really quick. Now this auto-scroller isn't too tough, but the other ones at the end can be pretty frustrating. I'd say the level 5 and then the two auto-scrollers on the final boss are probably the worst ones in my opinion that I would like to see improved, but it depends on when or if that will happen. There is also a save feature, so I don't really think this game is too long. It's mostly just you're going to be continuing a lot, and you can't just buy in like a traditional game like Metal Slug or something like that. So if you can't finish the game in one playthrough, or if you have the game on the Switch and you get pulled away to play Smash or some other multiplayer game, it's very accessible in that regard. So I'm gonna go ahead and select no, and then I'll show the ninja character. The ninja actually has less mechanics when you think about it, but the mechanics that he has are actually pretty solid. He plays kind of like a Mega Man X type character. Also, unlike the original two characters, the air dash is actually invincible, so you can dash through things with it. However, you can't get back down to the ground quickly, so you kind of have to choose to use it and not just spam it. The ninja also cannot access any of the grenade or weapon power-ups. That's something that I brought up to the developer as well. I think that's kind of a little bit of an awkward situation for the ninja because they can't interact with half of the power-ups in the game. The only thing they can really use is the bots. And the bots are heavily limited as well because you can't stack them. So here's the charge shot. Pretty similar to Mega Man X charge timing, so if you're used to doing like Buster only runs on one of the classic Mega Man X games, it's actually pretty similar. He has the roll as well. He also has the jump cancel. So let's go ahead and show the iframes on the dash, and then I think that'll be it. There you go. He also has the aiming as well. I haven't really found much use for the regular slash. It seems pretty much always better to use the charge slash, but I could be wrong. I only have one full playthrough on this game. There's a nice wealth of achievements as well. There are 6 levels in the game. The last one is pretty much just a boss rush, so it's kind of like a Mega Man X game where you have the 5 regular levels and then you kind of have like a Wily Castle type thing, but it's basically just 2 straight boss fights and you get a checkpoint at the end. The weakest part of this game for me was definitely the auto-scrollers. I think they're pretty repetitive and they go on too long. I've never really been a fan of auto-scrollers to begin with, but here you have the issue of not being able to continue on the spot. So if you lose, then you pretty much have to start from scratch with barely anything, and that can get quite repetitive. Like I said, they are in discussions to maybe change it, but I guess he has to talk to the rest of the developers and stuff and see what they think. But overall, I definitely enjoyed this game. I did grow up with Contra games as a kid. I definitely think this is up there with some of the better ones. It's very responsive, good looking, very satisfying to play games. Just got some kind of minor things, like the pacing does feel a little bit off if you die on an auto-scroller, but that's something that may be fixed in the near future. Anyway, that's my Blazing Chrome overview. I'll probably put up some Ninja mode gameplay maybe in the near future later this week. Thanks for watching. Peace.